Okay, we're going to do some street epistemology.
Who's our main interviewer?
Amber is going to be our interviewer, and Eric is our interlocutor, our conversation partner.
Okay.
And we're getting started right now.
Okay. This claim is, in the case of an unwanted pregnancy, if the government is going to force women to carry through to birth, that the government should also randomly assign custody of that child to the man and the woman at a 50% ratio.
Okay.
I might have to see that written down.
Yeah, that's a very long one. Let's see if we can.
It's pretty
clarify
simple. I
this.
mean, it should be randomly 50-50 split of who ends up with the custody. If neither one of them wants to have custody and raise the child,
Okay.
that it should be randomly equally divided.
What was the first part about the government? Here, I'm going to be quiet, and you take over.
Well, I mean, right now, it's generally given to the woman. And I think it needs to be made fair and equal. I mean, it's not equal that somebody pays monetary support and somebody has a commitment for 24/7 for 18 years at least. And so to make it fair, it should be split 50-50 and random.
Let's clarify that in like you're writing a tweet.
Okay.
How would you?
I would say that
So Amber can write it now, because I'm being quiet now.
that the government by law should assign custody of unwanted children to the man or the woman at an equal ratio, randomly.
Unwanted by both parents?
Yes.
Wow. So
Usually the custody is when both parents want custody, and the law determines who gets it based on suitability and all these things. But perhaps in cases where neither one of them wanted the pregnancy, wanted the child, and it's going to be either put up for adoption or assigned to one of the parents, that should be made random and equal.
So the claim is.
So your claim is that the government should assign unwanted kids randomly 50-50 to either the mother or the father of the child.
Yeah, by default.
Okay.
All right.
I think I'm going to need a water for that.
All right. So what's your confidence level on that claim?
Personally, 30%. As I said, it was kind of a devil's advocate postulate.
It's definitely something to think about. So what's your main reason for believing?
Because I think it's fundamentally unfair that the female is assigned custody to raise the child, even if the fathers are tasked with providing financial support. I think financial support is much less of a burden and a commitment than actual physical custody of the child.
And what are the reasons behind why you think the female is typically assigned the child? Why would the government do that?
I think because there's a perception that the child forms a biological and emotional attachment at birth or very young that is special, that the fathers don't have, and that needs to be preserved. And I think there's also a bias that females are better child raisers and custodians, and the mother is just assumed to be a better custodian and child raiser than a father, a single father, a single mother.
Do you think there's any evidence that females do tend to be better caregivers versus males?
I don't think it's been tested or explored scientifically or by research or established by evidence. So it may be possible, but it's still unfair.
Do you think fathers could fulfill the role as caregivers equally with a?
Yes, I do. I think they can. They're fully capable. Even though they can't breastfeed, I think that's a minor consideration. I think other than that, they're fully capable of raising a child from infancy.
And do you think, kind of opposite role, the female can provide the financial support that the male can?
I think that's the subject of financial inequality in our job world is a separate issue that should be equal, but given that it's not, I still think that it's not such an inequality that it should be assumed that females are less capable of providing child support. I mean, the range of income among people in general is so wide that the differential of females versus males shouldn't be the overriding consideration.
But do you think, because on average salary, child support is going to be a larger percentage of the woman's salary, do you think that should be taken into consideration when assigning the child?
I think financial capability in general should be considered a factor in calculating the child support. Like if the father is much more wealthy than the mother should be less, burdened with that. But that shouldn't be a factor in determining whether the male or the female is assigned custody.
So do you think the government should be exploring, like looking at the salary and other capabilities of each partner to determine in making their decision?
No, I don't think it should be a consideration in terms of who's given custody, but I think it should be a consideration in terms of child support providing.
So do you think it should be more like, walking in and flipping a coin? Okay, the male should walk out with the child.
Because just like sex of a child is kind of a flip of the coin, and whether or not a woman gets pregnant from a sexual encounter is a flip of the coin as well. Why not who ends up being burdened, or I don't know if you want to use the word burden, but it is a lifelong responsibility as far as when a pregnancy occurs. I think it should be an equal odds, maybe just random odds of who's going to be saddled with raising that child. If it has to be one parent or the other.
Can I break the third wall?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think it would be appropriate, like in doing this, of like saying why would it be better, like forcing one of the parents to take it instead of just going adoption route? Would that be straying too much from the claim, or
what do you mean?
so like if we're saying like
It's a little bit of a side topic. is
Yeah,
what you mean.
yeah.
But also interesting. So, and that happens in conversation. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say that this is a default choice, so it could be overridden by one parent wanting it more than the other parent, and there being agreement.
So this is
between the two
assuming
partners.
adoption's not an option
But-
and abortion's not an option.
Yeah, or well,
Family
if adoption
members
for
aren't
whatever
stepping
reason
in.
isn't an option, or it's not wanted, and
So the government needs to step in at this point.
yeah. So if there's a dispute between who gets custody, both parents want it equally, it should default to the one who is randomly chosen.
Oh,
So,
both parents want the child
yeah, let's say
in
both
this
parents
scenario.
wants the
Okay,
child.
it's not like
So it's not
neither
an
one.
unwanted.
So I
So
want
it
to
would give-
distinguish
it would give
between
the benefit of the-
unwanted pregnancy and unwanted child, because you said, I believe, unwanted child, meaning neither parent wants
Well,
this
it could
child.
be the default decision in either case, I guess. In the case where neither parent wants it, but adoption isn't an option, or both parents want it equally, and there's no reason that one should be assigned over the other. No obvious reason.
Because if neither parent
Yeah.
wanted the child, then adoption, both of them would be fine to
Yeah,
sign off their rights.
yeah, sure. So this is just kind of giving one side the advantage that, or the default that it's going to be one or the other.
The coin flip.
Yeah, the coin flip.
Instead of automatically going to the mother.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out a good question to ask there, and I guess I was framing it more around the idea that the child was unwanted. But I think it fits here as in if the child is wanted as well by both parents. But I'm still kind of having a hard time phrasing it. But like, do you believe that a random assignment is more likely to benefit the child's upbringing versus maybe looking at other factors and looking at the financial situation of each parent and I don't know, opportunities there.
It could be. I think that realistically should be considered, but I think right now there's a bias in favor of the female, very strong bias, and that maybe this would replace that bias.
So I feel like we need to adjust the claim a little bit
Okay.
because unwanted was
In my
part
original,
of the, yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe in disputed custody, or
Yeah,
because that could cover both. Neither one wants it,
right,
as well as both want.
because adoption is an
Uh-huh.
option and abortion is an
Yeah,
option.
let's say that there's just too much of a glut in orphan children,
Mhm.
and they don't want to put the child into a system where they're just going to be passed around in foster care until they're an adult. Maybe the judge determines that that would not be fair to the
There
child.
could be physical issues or diseases or
Yeah, that's a good
genetic disease or
Yeah,
some
there could
special
be-
needs of this newborn.
special burden consideration.
So should the needs of the child be considered at all in a decision of custody, particularly where you're using the word assigned custody, which sounds like it may be assigned to a parent who doesn't necessarily want that child?
Well, that could be the case that both parents do not want the child. If the pregnancy was unwanted and abortion was completely eliminated.
And do you believe then that the court should not consider the child's best interest, but
No,
should instead consider?
No, I would say I just don't think that the father and the mother should be, or the bias towards the mother should be a factor. I think
Okay.
that,
Yeah.
So we're looking at really, I believe your issue is that bias towards a mother should be eliminated in our
Yeah.
court system.
such that taking away other factors, that there's a random 50-50 chance of it being assigned to one or the other.
So is it possible that there's
That
a
makes
third
more sense.
solution?
Such as?
Split custody.
Yeah, that's always a possibility too. However, I think usually there's a primary custodian and then one that's the visitor. They go to visit 2 days a week or something. It becomes very difficult to completely split all the rights and duties of parenthood between two separate parents that are not necessarily getting along with each other and in tune with each other.
People do it every day.
So, I'm speaking from a limited knowledge of all the cases and how everything's handled.
Right.
I'm just
So would there be any
Positive.
exceptions to this rule?
that would introduce a bias towards one or the
That
other.
would make you change your confidence from 30% to,
I think if it could scientifically be established that males or females were better at raising an unwanted child,
this is assuming one would get sole custody,
uh,
one or the other, not,
Or
or
at least
primary,
Not-
primary
yeah.
custody.
And you went back to that word unwanted child again.
It happens.
it happens.
It happens.
in my experience, unwanted children usually end up in the care of DCFS.
Or they're just neglected.
Or they're
Yeah.
neglected or
And
abused.
then end up in DCS.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
it's not bad enough, or they don't get caught, or
Right.
Right.
emotionally
Yeah, it's sad. I'm
problems.
this whole scenario has, you think about how the child is being treated as a burden to be, pushed on somebody. And that's a really sad thing, but it's also a reality, I think.
Definitely is.
I mean, I loved my father. I took care of him when he developed dementia, and, I can't say that wasn't a burden. I mean, I loved him and I did it, and I did it happily, but it
Full-time
was
job.
it was an imposed because of the other siblings being out of town,
Right.
and kind of it fell upon me.
So
Was
an
it imposed?
obligation?
It was fell upon me because I was the only person that lived close to him that was a responsible sibling, you might say.
Could you have denied that responsibility?
I could have probably, but I think that would be callous, just like a mother, or a father abandoning their responsibility for his child.
We hijacked Amber's conversation. So, go ahead, Amber, if you have more to add.
So now I have so many other pets. This is hard doing this. I want to have a conversation instead of just exploring. Because going back to the how much should the child's well-being be taken into account, do you think finances and stability of home life and other things should be considered in?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, a judge would ultimately make the decision, but the judge would have a coin.
Flip it.
Yeah, I think there would be a legal guideline that they should be making this 50-50 statistically, just like they should be punishing black criminals equally with white criminals. When there's a big statistical differential, that's an indication that there's a problem.
So all other
That
things
there's a
being
bias.
equal,
Yeah,
stability, finances.
How often do you
mental
think
health.
it is going to be a 50-50 split, though, that the mother and father have equal means to care for the child?
I think probably the majority of the time, I would think. Yeah, I think most, especially in developed country like ours, even people that are maybe not poverty level, but most middle class people and up, could either one may be much richer than the other, but if they're living comfortably and they're able to feed themselves and they could feed a child and provide all the things at a base level, then it should. I think in most cases you'll find that exists. If it doesn't exist, obviously, I think that's another factor. But if one parent who's much more financially well off could compensate financially for the needs and provide enough, child support to provide all those needs, then maybe that still shouldn't be a deciding factor.
So within your system, would there be some kind of cutoff that if it doesn't meet X, Y, and Z, it would go to one parent or the
Sure.
other?
I think if one parent were shown to be a bad parent, either they're drug addicted, or
They don't want the child.
I think if they're, yeah.
I don't
But
want
then,
this.
that's when the judge will decide whether or not this child should be put into an adoptive situation or what. But I guess my basic fundamental thing is that the mother bias should be taken out, and there should be some 50-50 random chance that the man will be just as responsible for the upbringing of a child as the woman.
Do you think it should be taken into consideration at all? Because for a male, bringing a child into the world is a pretty quick task. But for a female, it takes 9 months
Yeah, I
and
think
possibly lifelong repercussions from having this child. Do you think that should be taken into account at all?
I think that's the reason why I postulate this, is that it's fundamentally unfair that not only does the man escape the physical burden of the pregnancy, but also more often escapes the task of actually raising the child, which is, I think, far more of a responsibility than providing child support.
So I feel
The
like
task and the privilege.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
privilege of shaping a child.
So I feel like that kind of goes back to the unwanted child, though, where neither the mother or the father want the child, which we did change it to be in a disputed custody. So in the case where both mom and dad want the child, do you think that should be taken into account?
Yeah,
at
I
all?
think the 50-50 chance should be the determinant.
So you're saying it
Given both are equally capable of raising a child.
Would you like to change your confidence level on this new claim from 30% to the unwanted child? Like, I'm not sure what the new claim is exactly,
in disputed
but in
custody.
disputed custody.
The government
right?
should
So
assign
both
it.
parents
Okay.
want the child equally.
Well, it's early in me coming up with this idea,
Yeah.
and so I haven't really explored the pros and cons of
Where
it,
you're at.
where I'm at. So I don't want to raise it too high, but maybe I'll give it a 50-50.
Okay.
I'd like to hear all the arguments from the females and the males, you know.
You could be swayed either
Yeah.
way. Mhm.
Sure.
Sounds fair. Any other questions for Eric?
I
Do
had
you
a-
feel attacked? Should we
No.
stop?
I enjoy this kind
Okay.
of thing.
I had one other
I
question.
thought I would jump in as the epistemologist, you know,
Uh-huh.
but I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to explore this
Yeah.
idea that came up just after the Roe v. Wade thing, you know.
Right.
Really interesting. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to ask, do you, when making like personal decisions, do you typically like to make those personal decisions like at random?
Oh.
No.
Wow, that's a really, really good question.
Thanks.
Yeah,
So-
whenever
so
possible,
with
I try to
that, right.
I try to reason out things and come up with what's the better decision. And
Right. So, I guess to follow that up, yeah, would you think that then that would be good to
yeah, as I
use
say,
that-
the
use
judge
that
would
then?
be in charge of
Yeah.
ultimately, but he would have a responsibility of trying to keep his statistics to the 50-50
Yeah.
line overall.
So he could just randomly, the last one was female, so this one's gonna be male. Mom got it last time, you
Yeah.
just switch off. So you just
He
wanna
could
time
do
your
that.
court session
I'm
accordingly.
in awe of that question.
What's
I
that?
said I'm in awe of that question.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I would never have thought of that, but I think it's an excellent question.
Thanks.
So it would be the benefit of having like a 50-50% assigning versus we have just a very neutral computer program that doesn't take gender into consideration where we just plug all
Yeah,
of the
maybe.
variables
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, that might be a good.
Just do like a weighted average or something.
Yeah.
So what might be benefits of doing the 50-50 over something like that?
Sorry, I gotta step out and take this call.
Go ahead.
You know, that might be a better solution, but the intent of this whole thing is to eliminate the female bias.
Maybe come up with a list of requirements that
I mean, the same thing could be
non-gendered.
could be done with racial disparities in things. If somehow you could have a program task that did not
Who's making the
consider-
program?
Right.
Are they
And even with,
biased?
I mean, they've shown that even AIs
Yeah.
have biases
Right.
because of, unintentional biases.
Just want to
added-
minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah. True.
I don't know how to do that, but somebody does maybe.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, do you have any other questions, Amber?
I think that's all. So thank you for having the conversation with me today. Is there anything you would like to add or has your
Did I
position
trigger
changed at
you
all?
with this postulate?
You did.
I wonder what kind of reaction I'm going to get from females by suggesting such a thing.
Yeah.
I
a
fall
fair
in the
question.
category of not wanting to have children. So
You don't have
I would,
children?
nope, and
No.
not gonna happen. So
I did come up with another claim that maybe we could put on a card for another time.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks, guys.
so yeah, like I'm not sure.